So today Shiva Ratri is today, and I thought to take the opportunity and um, read not so much about Shiva, but how Shiva worships Krishna. So um, we'll read from Srimad Bhagavatam, from the fourth canto, and I chose 40 verses. Let's see how far we get. So my intention is to mainly read the verses, and anyone who wants to get a book, it's in the fourth canto, in the chapter 24, and we're starting with verse 33. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate
Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Vasudevaya. So it's fourth canto, chapter 24. We're on text 33.
Yes.
Fourth canto, chapter 24, text 33. Oh, I'll try to write it here.
I didn't plan to focus on one verse and do the reciting, but just read. So
Good.
if you don't have a book, then I'll read everything. So, Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurube Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuttapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanjana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishvabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evaja Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Sarasvate Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. So Shiva, I found a picture of Shiva. I got this many years ago from one of my daughters before they could write. So this is an image of Lord Shiva. And actually, the first time I came in contact with Lord Shiva was during a Sattvato seminar. I got an impression of who Lord Shiva might be. And as in many cases, I appreciate that this was my introduction because, yeah, it made Lord Shiva accessible for me. And if we look at him, he's like his he's covered in ashes, and he has long filthy hair, and he doesn't have a very like clean appearance. He has a trident, which is something I knew from the devil. So yeah, so I was glad to meet Shiva through Sattva first. And my I don't really know very much about Shiva, and just a few things that attract me, or that I find inspiring. And one is that Shiva, he's a devotee of Krishna, and he doesn't care one little bit what anyone thinks of him. So he will do anything in his service to Lord Krishna, and he's not worried what will others think, what will that look like. And that's very inspiring for me, because I spend a lot of time worrying about what will others think when I do this, when I say this. And he's very compassionate, so he takes care of the most fallen living entities, who want to get material benefits. They worship Shiva, and he takes care of them, and he fulfills their desires. And he's actually, it's said that he fulfills their desires. He accepts their worship, but actually he's waiting for any glimpse in the heart of his devotees that they search for something more, something bigger, higher than Lord Shiva. And when that glimpse comes up, he directs them towards Krishna. And I have met a few people who came to Krishna consciousness, and they say Lord Shiva directed them to Krishna. So he's very compassionate. And then another aspect of Shiva is that he has this eternal love story with Parvati, and that comes up. Parvati appears in different forms, and we can read in Srimad Bhagavatam how she appears as the daughter of Daksha, and her name is Sati, and she marries Lord Shiva, and then because Daksha doesn't doesn't respect or pay his respects to Lord Shiva, Sati gets very angry, and she leaves her body, and she appears again as Ambika, I think. She appears again as Ambika, and then meets Lord Shiva again. So it's sorry. Ah, so it's a like an eternal love story, and actually, Shiva Ratri, I thought it was Lord Shiva's appearance day, and I did some research, and it seems that Shiva Ratri is the night of Shiva, and it's the night when Shiva married Parvati. So, so the night, so those who worship Shiva, they fast all day and night, even from water, and especially during night, they chant the mantra for Shiva, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. And I found an excerpt from Krishna book where Srila Prabhupada writes about Shivaratri. And okay, where is it here? It's from chapter 34. And he writes, once upon a time, the cowherd men of Vrindavan, headed by Nanda Maharaj, desired to go to Ambikavan to observe the Shivaratri ceremony. The Rasa Lila was performed during the autumn, and after that the next big ceremony is Holi, or the Dola Yatra ceremony. Between the Dola Yatra ceremony and the Rasa Lila ceremony, there is one important ceremony called Shivaratri, which is especially observed by the devotees of Lord Shiva. Sometimes the Vaishnavas also observe this ceremony because they accept Lord Shiva as the foremost Vaishnav. But the function of Shivaratri is not observed very regularly by the bhaktas or devotees of Krishna. Under the circumstances, it is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam that Nanda Maharaj and the other cowherd men once upon a time desired. This means they were not regularly observing the Shivaratri function, but that once upon a time they wanted to go to Ambikavan out of curiosity. So even Nanda Maharaj and the coward men, they once upon a time observed this Shivaratri. And Srila Prabhupada says, the Vaishnavas, however, worship Lord Shiva on this day in order to receive his blessings to become a better devotee of Lord Krishna and not to attain residence in the abode of Shiva. So Shiva is worshipped to get material blessings or to go and be with Shiva. And Prabhupada says, well, the Vaishnavas, they also sometimes worship or celebrate this event and they pray to Shiva to get devotional service. It's also said that during this night, Shivaratri, that Shiva performs his dance. And that's another aspect of Shiva that I find very attractive and wakes my curiosity. Like Lord Shiva, he destroys like at the end of certain cycles, and at the end of the existence of the material universe, he destroys the universe with a dance, like a glorious dance of destruction. So the place that I would like to read, so a little bit about the context in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So in like way back at the beginning of creation, when the first living entities were created, there were the Prachetas, the 10 sons of, I didn't note down his name. Can you say it again? Oh, I thought someone said. So
Malini said, Maharaj Prachina Bari Shat, sometimes known as what Barhi Shat. Yeah. And so and Prachina Bari Shat, so his sons are the Prachetas.
The Prachetas, yes. So Prachina Bari, that he had 10 sons and they were called the Prachetas. And as they grew up, it was time for them to get married. And before getting married, they decided to do some austerities and they went into nature, into the forest, to the river. And actually there at the river, they met Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva. And Lord Shiva, he instructed them. He recited a mantra for them and said, recite this mantra in your austerity and you'll become pure in heart. You'll become devotees of Krishna. And so they did that for just 10,000 years. They stood there and they meditated this mantra that we're going to read together afterwards. And it's very fascinating because after the 10,000 years they completed their austerities, they decided to get married, and they all married one lady, Marisha. And Marisha was the goddess of the trees. And they lived their household life, and then decided to no, actually before, during their austerity, Vishnu arrived. Vishnu visited the Prachetas and also spoke to them. And after that, they married Marisha and they had sons. And when their married household life was over, they went to the sea to perform more austerities to prepare to go back to Krishna. And then they met Narada Muni. So they are very fortunate. Like they met Shiva, they met Krishna, they met Narada Muni, and they received instructions. And we hear those instructions in Srimad Bhagavatam, described by Shukadev Goswami, I believe, who narrates about other conversations he had. So this mantra was given to the Prachetas before they got married, as they were doing their austerities. So I will read the mantras, and I also read the purports, and I will just take out some. I will take out some bits of the purport where Srila Prabhupada explains a word or a meaning more deeply. So Lord Shiva addressed the Supreme Personality of Godhead with the following prayer. O Supreme Personality of Godhead, all glories unto you. You are the most exalted of all realized souls. Since you are always auspicious for the self-realized, I wish that you be auspicious for me. You are worshipable by virtue of the all-perfect instructions you give. You are the Supersoul, therefore I offer my obeisances unto you as the Supreme Living Being. And there's one part in the purport where Srila Prabhupada he like gives some philosophy, and then he always goes back to Shiva and explains what this means for Shiva, or what Shiva means by his words. And he says the conclusion is that Lord Shiva wanted to remain a fixed devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. As explained in the following verses, Lord Shiva never desires to merge into the existence of the Supreme Lord like the impersonalists. Rather, he thinks that it would be good fortune for him to continue to be fixed in the understanding of the Lord as the Supreme Being. By this understanding, one realizes that all living entities, including Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, and other demigods, are servants of the Supreme Lord. So Prabhupada gives us an understanding what is Lord Shiva's position. He's an eternal servant of the Lord, and Shiva is not taking that for granted, or like he prays to remain in that consciousness, to remain in that position. My Lord, you are the origin of the creation. By virtue of the lotus flower which sprouts from your navel, you are the supreme controller of the senses and the sense objects, and you are also the all-pervading Vasudeva. You are most peaceful, and because of your self-illuminated existence, you are not disturbed by the 6 kinds of transformations. So we heard about this yesterday from Eze. I'll read a little from the purport. The Lord as Garbhodakashayi Vishnu lies in the ocean of Garbha within this universe, and from his navel the lotus flower sprouts. Lord Brahma is generated from that lotus flower, and from Lord Brahma the creation of this material world begins. As such, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, is the origin of the material senses and sense objects. Since Lord Shiva considers himself to be one of the products of the material nature, his senses are under the control of the Supreme Creator. So as Dhira Govinda had said, like Shiva was born from the eyebrow, or between the eyebrows of Brahma. So Shiva is referring to that. And the next verse, my dear Lord, you are the origin of the subtle material ingredients, the master of all integration as well as the master of all disintegration, the predominating deity named Sankarshan, and the master of all intelligence, known as the predominating deity Pradyumna. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. My Lord, as the supreme directing deity known as Aniruddha, you are the master of the senses and the mind. I therefore offer my obeisances unto you again and again. You are known as Ananta as well as Sankarshan because of your ability to destroy the whole creation by the blazing fire from your mouth. My Lord, O Aniruddha, you are the authority by which the doors of the higher planetary systems and liberation are opened. You are always within the pure heart of the living entity. Therefore I offer my obeisances unto you. You are the possessor of semen which is like gold, and thus in the form of fire you help the Vedic sacrifices, beginning with Chaturhotra. Therefore I offer my obeisances unto you. So my understanding here is that Lord Shiva is describing, glorifying the Lord Krishna as Mahavishnu, as the creator, and then he goes on to to glorify different aspects of Mahavishnu or of Krishna, which can, for me, become quite confusing. Which Krishna or which Mahavishnu or which Vishnu is he glorifying? He's glorifying God, that's for sure. So he continues and he says, My Lord, you are the provider of the Pitrilokas, as well as all the demigods. You are the predominating deity of the moon and the master of all three Vedas. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you, because you are the original source of satisfaction for all living entities. So he's addressing the demigods and also the moon, and in the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, Soma, or the predominating deity of the moon, is responsible for the living entity's ability to relish the taste of food through the tongue. Lord Shiva prays to Lord Aniruddha to give him strength so that he will not taste anything but the prasad of the Lord. So he worships Aniruddha, and in a purport before, Prabhupada also relates Aniruddha to the sun, that Shiva is celebrating, glorifying the sun and also the moon, and he explains how the sun in our universe is actually Surya Narayan, so it's a form of Vishnu. There was no one to take the post of the sun god, so Vishnu expanded himself and took the post himself. So Shiva is also worshipping the sun, or Krishna in the form of the sun god. My dear Lord, you are the gigantic universal form which contains all the individual bodies of the living entities. You are the maintainer of the three worlds, and as such you maintain the mind, senses, body, and air of life within them. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto you. And Prabhupada writes in the purport, even though one may desire to engage in the service of the Lord, without sanction one cannot do so. Lord Shiva is offering his prayers in so many different ways in order to show living entities how to engage in the devotional service of the Lord. So this feels very, very caring and compassionate, that Lord Shiva is saying this prayer and worshipping all these different aspects, so that each one of us can like hook onto something. There will be something we'll feel attracted to. My dear Lord, by expanding your transcendental vibrations, you reveal the actual meaning of everything. You are the all-pervading sky within and without, and you are the ultimate goal of pious activities executed both within this material world and beyond it. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances again and again unto you. And here, what stands out for me is the transcendental vibrations. So Krishna is expanding his transcendental vibrations to reveal the actual meaning of everything. And Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport one sentence, Lord Shiva, he writes more, but I'll read one sentence. Lord Shiva is therefore praying to the personality of Godhead to be kind to us, so that simply by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, we can understand everything in both the material and the spiritual worlds. So that's a very short summary of the potency of the Maha Mantra. My dear Lord, you are the viewer of the results of pious activities. You are inclination, disinclination, and their resultant activities. You are the cause of the miserable conditions of life caused by irreligion, and therefore you are death. I offer you my respectful obeisances. My dear Lord, you are the topmost of all devotees. Uh, no. You are the topmost of all bestowers of all benediction, the oldest and supreme enjoyer amongst all enjoyers. You are the master of all the worlds, metaphysical philosophy, for you are the supreme cause of all causes, Lord Krishna. You are the greatest of all religious principles, the supreme mind, and you have a brain which is never checked by any condition. Therefore, I repeatedly offer obeisances unto you. So, Krishna has a brain, and it's not, it's never confused or muddled. And Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport about the brain. Um, a living entity is called Anu, an atomic particle of the Supreme Soul, and therefore his brain is also atomic. It cannot accommodate unlimited knowledge. This does not mean, however, that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, has a limited brain. What Krishna says and does is not limited by time and space. In Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says, Vedaham samatitani vartamanani karjuna bhavishyani chaputani mam tu vedana kaschana. O Arjuna, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I know everything that has happened in the past, all that is happening in the present, and all things that are yet to come. I also know all living entities, but me no one knows. So somehow I felt attracted to this brain, and Krishna has a clear, unconditioned, unlimited brain. So Shiva continues to pray, My dear Lord, you are the supreme controller of the worker, sense activities and results of sense activities, karma. Therefore you are the controller of the body, mind, and senses. You are also the supreme controller of egotism, known as Rudra. You are the source of knowledge and activities of the Vedic injunctions. And I'll read a little from the purport. Everyone acts under the dictation of the ego. Therefore, Lord Shiva is trying to purify false egotism through the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Since Lord Shiva, or Rudra, is himself the controller of egotism, he indirectly wants to be purified by the mercy of the Lord so that his real egotism can be awakened. Of course, Lord Rudra is always spiritually awake, but for our benefit he is praying in this way. For the impersonalists, pure egotism is aham brahmasmi. I am not this body, I am spirit soul. But in the actual position, the spirit soul has devotional activities to perform. Therefore, Lord Shiva prays to be engaged both in mind and in action, in the devotional service of the Supreme Lord, according to the direction of the Vedas. So Shiva is mentioning himself, Rudra, in this mantra for us. My dear Lord, I wish to see you exactly in the form that your very dear devotees worship. You have many other forms, but I wish to see your form that is especially liked by the devotees. Please be merciful upon me and show me that form, for only that form worshipped by the devotees can perfectly satisfy all the demands of the senses. So it seems like a theme that devotees who I'm thinking of Arjuna on the battlefield. He's praying to Lord Krishna to see his universal form, and Shiva here he is It seems like speaking to Mahavishnu, Krishna in the form of Mahavishnu. And now he wants to see another form of Krishna. He wants to see the form that the devotees of him see. And Prabhupada writes in the purport, the Jnanis, Yogis, and Karmis are not particularly dear, for the Karmis simply want to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead as their order supplier. The Jnanis want to see him to become one with him, and the Yogis want to see him partially represented within their heart as Paramatma. But the Bhaktas, or the devotees, want to see him in his complete perfection, as stated in the Brahma Samhita. Venum kvanantam aravindam dalayaktaksham barhavatam sam asitam buddha sandarangam kandarpakoti kamaniya visheshashobham govindam adipurusham tamaham bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord who is adept at playing on his flute, whose eyes are blooming like lotus petals, whose head is bedecked with peacock feathers, whose beauty is tinged with the hue of blue clouds, and whose unique loveliness charms millions of cupids. Thus, Lord Shiva's desire is to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead as he is described in this way, that is, he wants to see him as he appears to the Bhagavatas, the devotees. The conclusion is that Lord Shiva wants to see him in complete perfection, and not in the impersonalist or voidist way. So Shiva continues to pray. The Lord's beauty resembles a dark cloud during the rainy season. As the rainfall glistens, his bodily features also glisten. Indeed, he is the sum total of all beauty. The Lord has 4 arms and an exquisitely beautiful face with eyes like lotus petals, a beautiful highly raised nose, a mind-attracting smile, a beautiful forehead, and equally beautiful and fully decorated ears. It's actually it's a curiosity I'll mention here. I have, and for which I did not find a clear explanation. So Shiva is praying to see Lord Krishna as Govinda. That's what I understand from Srila Prabhupada's explanation. And then he describes how he sees Krishna with 4 arms. So these 4 arms, I was wondering, because my understanding of Govinda is that he has 2 arms. So anyhow, Shiva continues to describe the Lord. The Lord is super excellently beautiful on account of his open and merciful smile and his sidelong glance upon his devotees. His black hair is curly, and his garments, waving in the wind, appear like flying saffron pollen from lotus flowers. His glittering earrings, shining helmet, bangles, garland, ankle bells, waist belt, and various other bodily ornaments combine with conch shell, disc, club, and lotus flower to increase the natural beauty of the Kaustubha pearl on his chest. The Lord has shoulders just like a lion's. Upon these shoulders are garlands, necklaces, and epaulettes, and all of these are always glittering. Besides these, there is the beauty of the Kaustubha Mani pearl, and on the dark chest of the Lord there are streaks named Srivatsa, which are signs of the goddess of fortune. The glittering of these streaks excels the beauty of the golden streaks on a gold testing stone. Indeed, such beauty defeats a gold testing stone. That's very poetic description. Very beautiful. And Shiva continues, the Lord's abdomen is beautiful due to the 3 ripples in the flesh. Being so round, his abdomen resembles the leaf of a banyan tree, and when he exhales and inhales, the movement of the ripples appear very, very beautiful. The coils within the navel of the Lord are so deep that it appears that the entire universe sprouted out of it, and yet again wishes to go back. So the universe doesn't like to be separated from Krishna. It wants to go back. The lower part of the Lord's I something from the purport I wanted to read. Prabhupada writes, impersonalists cannot appreciate the beautiful body of the Lord, which is described in these prayers by Lord Shiva. Although the impersonalists are always engaged in the worship of Lord Shiva, they are unable to understand the prayers offered by Lord Shiva to the bodily features of Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu is known as Shiva Virinchi Nutam, for he is always worshipped by Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. So that's quite amazing for me. So Shiva has like his disciples, or he has worshippers, and they so it would mean they listen to Shiva. So Shiva is is worshipping Krishna, and here Prabhupada writes they don't. The followers of Shiva, they don't appreciate that. They don't appreciate. And Shiva continues, the lower part of the Lord's waist is dark and covered with yellow garments, and the belt bedecked with golden embroidery work. His symmetrical lotus feet and the calves, thighs, and joints of his legs are extraordinarily beautiful. Indeed, the Lord's entire body appears to be well built. My dear Lord, your two lotus feet are so beautiful that they appear like two blossoming petals of the lotus flower which grows during the autumn season. Indeed, the nails of your lotus feet emanate such a great effulgence that they immediately dissipate all the darkness in the heart of the conditioned soul. My dear Lord, kindly show me that form of yours, which always dissipates all kinds of darkness in the heart of a devotee. My dear Lord, you are the supreme spiritual master of everyone. Therefore, all conditioned souls covered with the darkness of ignorance can be enlightened by you as the spiritual master. And Prabhupada explains in his purport, Lord Shiva has thus described the bodily features of the Lord authoritatively. Now he wants to see the lotus feet of the Lord. When a devotee wants to see the transcendental form of the Lord, he begins his meditation on the Lord's body by first looking at the feet of the Lord. Srimad Bhagavatam is considered to be the transcendental sound form of the Lord, and the 12 cantos are divided in accordance with the transcendental form of the Lord. The first and second cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam are called the lotus feet of the Lord. It is therefore suggested by Lord Shiva that one should try first to see the lotus feet of the Lord. This also means that if one is serious about reading Srimad Bhagavatam, he must begin by seriously studying the first and second cantos. So I was especially inspired by that because in the morning program we're in Canto 4, Canto 2, and so Canto 1 and 2 that's a representation of Krishna's lotus feet, and I got more understand because it is like a mystery to me. What does it mean to worship the lotus feet of Krishna? I hear many explanations and still it's not tangible for me. And here I got like, oh, so by studying the first canto and the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, that is worshipping the lotus feet of Krishna. So that's like a something tangible for me. And Prabhupada says, which is very so encouraging, there are so many encouraging sentences here. And he says, when one sees the lotus feet of the Lord, all kinds of doubts and fears within the heart are vanquished. So by studying Canto 1 and Canto 2, we get to see the lotus feet of the Lord, and our doubts and fears will disappear from our heart. So encouraging. My dear Lord, those who desire to purify their existence must always engage in meditation upon your lotus feet as described above. Those who are serious about executing their occupational duties and who want freedom from fear must take to this process of bhakti yoga. My dear Lord, the king in charge of the there is something in the purport which actually from now on that devotional service, Shiva glorifies devotional service. And Srila Prabhupada writes about devotional service some explanation. It is said that the transcendental name, form, pastimes, and entourage of the Lord cannot be appreciated by the blunt material senses. Therefore, one has to engage himself in devotional service so that the senses may be purified and one can see the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Here, however, it is indicated that those who are constantly engaged in meditating on the lotus feet of the Lord are certainly purified of the material contamination of the senses and are thus able to see the Supreme Lord face to face. The word meditation is very popular in this age amongst the common people, but they do not know the actual meaning of meditation. However, from Vedic literature we learn that the yogis are always absorbed in meditation upon the lotus feet of the Lord. This is the real business of the yogis, to think of the lotus feet of the Lord. Lord Shiva therefore advises that one who is actually serious about purification must engage himself in this type of meditation or in the mystic yoga system, which will help him not only see the Lord within constantly, but to see him face to face and become his associate in Vaikuntha Loka or Goloka Vrindavan. So meditation is not sitting and just floating off somewhere. Reading, studying Srimad Bhagavatam is meditation. That's what I get from this purport. That's meditation and that's devotional service and that's purifying. And if we continue to do this, we'll get to see Krishna face to face. Shiva continues, My dear Lord, the king in charge of the heavenly kingdom is also desirous of attaining the ultimate goal of life, devotional service. Similarly, you are the ultimate destination of those who identify themselves with you, Aham Brahmasmi. However, it is very difficult for them to attain you, whereas a devotee can very easily attain your lordship. My dear Lord, pure devotional service is even difficult for liberated persons to discharge, but devotional service alone can satisfy you. Who will take to the other processes of self-realization if he is actually serious about the perfection of life? Simply by expansion of his eyebrows, invincible time personified can immediately vanquish the entire universe. However, formidable time does not approach the devotee who has taken complete shelter at your lotus feet. So, Lord Shiva, he highlights the importance and the like the I don't know if I can say supreme position of devotional service and the benefits of devotional service. And Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport, in Bhagavad Gita it is said that the Lord in the shape and form of death destroys all persons' possessions. Mrityu sarva haras jaham. I am all devouring death. The Lord in the shape of death takes away everything that is created by the conditioned soul. And then I'll skip a few lines, and Srila Prabhupada speaks of Yamaraj, so the Lord of Death, or death personified. When Yamaraj, the superintendent of death, was instructing his assistants, he told them not to approach devotees. The devotees should be offered respect, he said, but do not go near them. Thus the devotees of the Lord are not under the jurisdiction of Yamaraj. Yamaraj is a representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he controls the death of every living entity. Yet he has nothing to do with the devotees. Simply by blinking his eyes, time personified can destroy the entire cosmic manifestation, but he has nothing to do with the devotees. In other words, devotional service which is rendered by the devotee in this lifetime can never be destroyed by time. Such spiritual assets remain unchanged, being beyond the influence of time. So reading this, I felt some reassurance, and also perhaps a little more understanding what that means, that a Vaishnav never dies. Like he's not, like death cannot get a Vaishnav. And I was, yeah, so what does it mean? So what I get from here, and also earlier on, Shiva mentioned that Krishna is death, like he's the cause of death and destruction. And yeah, so Krishna is taking care of everyone, and he's in different forms. Like, so in the form of time or in the form of death, he destroys what is material. So if we have, if who we are is all based on identification with something that's material, it's all going to go. So nothing of us is going to remain, except of course the soul. But if we don't have a realization of the soul, then or turn it around, if we do have realization of the soul, then that realization that we have, that part of the soul that's enlightened or visible, I don't know how to say it, that is going to remain. That is not going to not going to be destroyed. And that's what Krishna also mentions in the Bhagavad Gita, that whatever we do in devotional service, it's never going to be destroyed. Even if we forget about Krishna again, we will come to a place, perhaps in the next life, where all this is wakened up again. So yeah, death personified. He tells his servants not to go near the devotees. And Shiva continues to pray, if one by chance associates with a devotee, even for a fraction of a moment, he no longer is subject to attraction by the results of karma or jnana. What interest then can he have in the benedictions of the demigods who are subject to the laws of birth and death? My dear Lord, your lotus feet are the cause of all auspicious things, and the destroyer of all the contamination of sin. I therefore beg your Lordship to bless me by the association of your devotees, who are completely purified by worshipping your lotus feet, and who are so merciful upon the conditioned souls. I think that your real benediction will be to allow me to associate with such devotees. So Shiva, he speaks about the amazing association, or the amazing effect of associating with devotees. And he prays for that association. The devotee whose heart has been completely cleansed by the process of devotional service, and who is favored by Bhakti Devi, does not become bewildered by the external energy, which is just like a dark well. Being completely cleansed of all material contamination in this way, a devotee is able to understand very happily your name, fame, form, activities, etc. So other devotees, especially those who have a pure heart, they support us to see Krishna, understand Krishna very happily. My dear Lord, the impersonal Brahman spreads everywhere, like the sunshine or the sky, and that impersonal Brahman which spreads throughout the universe and in which the entire universe is manifested is you. My dear Lord, you have manifold energies, and these energies are manifested in manifold forms. With such energies, you have also created this cosmic manifestation, and although you maintain it as if it were permanent, you ultimately annihilate it. Although you are never disturbed by such changes and alterations, the living entities are disturbed by them, and therefore they find the cosmic manifestation to be different or separated from you. My Lord, you are always independent, and I can clearly see this fact. My dear Lord, your universal form. So it's interesting now. Shiva is going back to describing and worshipping the universe, the cosmic form. My dear Lord, your universal form consists of all five elements: the senses, mind, intelligence, false ego, which is material, and the Paramatma, your partial expansion, who is the director of everything. Yogis, other than the devotees, namely the Karma Yogi and Jnana Yogi, worship you by their respective actions in their respective positions. It is stated both in the Vedas and in the Shastras that are corollaries of the Vedas, and indeed everywhere, that it is only you who are to be worshipped. That is expert version. That is the expert version of all the Vedas. My dear Lord, you are the only supreme person, the cause of all causes. That before the creation of this material world, your material energy remains in a dormant condition. When your material energy is agitated, the three qualities, namely goodness, passion, and ignorance, act, and as a result, the total material energy, egotism, ether, air, fire, water, earth, and all the various demigods and saintly persons become manifest. Thus, the material world is created. So Shiva summarizes very briefly the the creation of the universe, of the material universe. My dear Lord, after creating by your own potencies, you enter within the creation of four kinds of forms. Being within the hearts of the living entities, you know them and know how they are enjoying their senses. The so-called happiness of this material creation is exactly like the bee's enjoyment of honey after it has been collected in the honeycomb. My dear Lord, your absolute authority cannot be directly experienced, but one can guess by seeing the activities of the world that everything is being destroyed in due course of time. The force of time is very strong, and everything is being destroyed by something else, just as one animal is being eaten by another animal. Time scatters everything, exactly as the wind scatters clouds in the sky. My dear Lord, all living entities within this material world are mad after planning for things, and they are always busy with a desire to do this or that. So it doesn't seem to be a sign just of our time that everyone is planning and doing a lot of things. It's uh, it's an eternal thing. Um, this is due to uncontrollable greed. The greed for material enjoyment is always existing in the living entity, but your lordship is always alert, and in due course of time you strike him, just as a snake seizes a mouse and very easily swallows him. My dear Lord, any learned person knows that unless he worships you, he's in. Oh, actually, I wanted to comment something on this because it could seem quite mean, no? Like the living entity, we go after sense enjoyment, and Krishna allows it, or Paramatma allows it for a while, and then after some time, he's you strike him, he strikes us, just as a snake seizes a mouse. And just recently, I read a prayer where it just came to my mind now, so I don't have the exact details, but what I remember from this prayer is it's Krishna speaking, and he says in that speech, he says, I allow the conditioned souls to some, like if they pray for a material benediction, I will give some to them, but actually I know much better. It's not, why should I give it to them if it's just poison in the end? So at some point, I will not give it to them anymore, and I'll give them devotional service. And I found that very like it's that's the perspective of Krishna. So he's not seizing us like what it says, like a snake seizes a mouse. A snake seizes a mouse to eat it and to destroy it, but that's not what Krishna is doing. Like he's not doing that to hurt or harm us, even though we might experience it that way. He's doing it because he knows there's a deeper fulfillment we can get. So there are just a few more verses. I hope you can. Yeah. So, my dear Lord, any learned person knows that unless he worships you, his entire life is spoiled. Knowing this, how could you give up worshipping your lotus feet? Oh, how? How could he give up worshipping your lotus feet? Even your father and spiritual master, Lord Brahma, unhesitantly worshipped you, and the 14 Manus followed in his footsteps. Even our father and spiritual master, Lord Brahma, unhesitatingly worshipped you. My dear Lord, all actually learned persons know you as the Supreme Brahman and the Supersoul. Although the entire universe is afraid of Lord Rudra, who ultimately annihilates everything, for the learned devotees, you are the fearless destination of all. And then he speaks, then Lord Shiva addresses the Prachetas again, and he says, my dear sons of the king, just execute your occupational duty as kings with a pure heart. Just chant this prayer, fixing your mind on the lotus feet of the Lord. That will bring you all good fortune, for the Lord will be very much pleased with you. Therefore, O sons of the king, the supreme personality of Godhead, Hari, is situated in everyone's heart. He is also within your hearts. Therefore, chant the glories of the Lord and always meditate upon him continuously. And as I was reading this, I felt like Shiva is also speaking to me. He's also speaking to us. He's saying, well, Krishna is also in our hearts, in your hearts, in each one's heart. And he encourages us to chant the glories of the Lord. My dear princes, in the form of a prayer, I have delineated the yoga system of chanting the holy name. All of you should take this important stotra within your minds and promise to keep it in order to become great sages. By acting silently like a great sage and by giving attention and reverence, you should practice this method. So I'll end here. After that, Lord Shiva departed, and the Prachetas meditated on these verses, on these mantras for 10,000 years. So that's what I prepared, and I thought perhaps now we could just have some sharing. I'm curious what there's a lot in these mantras, and I'm curious to hear what's your experience of hearing Shiva, Lord Shiva praying to Lord Krishna. What touched your heart, or what inspired you, or maybe you have questions that I won't be able to respond, but maybe someone else. Len, you have your hand raised?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Anandini, so what stands out for me here is the it's kind of a split between this image of Lord Shiva, dressed in ashes. He has a snake garland around his neck. He's doing the dance of destruction. Um, he's stoned out in meditation. I don't know how this idea about him, being like the uh, these worshippers of Shiva, the Shivites, I guess, who don't really focus so much on Krishna, and they like the idea of Shiva, you know, uh, being intoxicated. But Shiva. One thing I learned about Shiva, he drank the poison ocean. Okay, I guess the poison ocean was the causal ocean. I'm not sure actually what the poison ocean was, but his neck turned blue, so he was able to survive it. But um, doing all these mystical things, but the main idea is here Shiva has a very powerful. He's Krishna's greatest devotee. He's a great Vaishnava. Okay, forget all this mystical stuff. Forget him uh, being stoned out in trance and meditating. He's focused on Krishna. He's meditating on Krishna. He's not just all about enjoying his senses, and he's not um, about getting material rewards. He realizes, like you pointed out several times, that getting the material rewards is just a secondary. He rather would point you toward Krishna. So this is what I'm glad that you emphasized, and that I guess I guess I had misconceptions about Shiva, and didn't really know at first that he was the Lord's greatest Vaishnava, greatest devotee. Thinking about him in these other ways, as the dance of destruction and, you know, destroyer of the material universes. And so, yeah, let's focus on what Shiva really is all about, which is, being a devotee and worshiping the lotus feet of Krishna, which I appreciate the idea that, yeah, by studying the first two cantos, then we are focusing on the lotus feet of the Lord. Exactly. And then we work our way up. I guess by the time we get to the 10th canto, then we're up at Krishna's head. But yeah, start out at the lotus feet. So that's very attractive. And one last thing that I thought was interesting was just the descriptions of Krishna's body, which I don't know whether it's Lord Shiva or Shukadeva Goswami that's saying this, but so Lord Krishna actually, yeah, he has a great body. He actually has a six pack, describing his stomach with the ripples. So Krishna has a six pack, and he has a brain. So all these new things we're learning here about Krishna, very exciting. Thank you, Anandini, for class.
Thank you, Len. Yeah, I also thought about the six pack and thought, no, I better not mention it. And so I appreciate that you mentioned it. Yeah, and I get like you're appreciating of getting a broader understanding of who Lord Shiva is and what is in Lord Shiva's heart. Like despite his appearance, external appearance, you get to see more what's in his heart, and that's pure devotion to Krishna. Thank you. Kelly.
Thank you for this class, Anandini. It's nice to hear of Lord Shiva in this way. And I have not been attracted to him. I've been rather avoidant, not consciously necessarily. But hearing what attracts me most here is that how you described the strength and the power of his devotion. That is, there's no. It's so powerful, and he's so clear and focused, and it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks or whatever is happening. It's his sole purpose is to be so devoted to Krishna, and I'm just appreciating that. It's very inspiring and enlivening to have this example of what like real pure devotion, like almost warrior-like devotion. I guess it is warrior-like. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Kelly. Hearing your reflections on what we read, I get even more appreciation for Lord Shiva's like full dedication and surrender to Krishna. So Gary, Gajendra, and then Malini. Or Malini, you wanted to say something to that?
I just wanted to say something to that, that when you said that at the beginning of the class, that Lord Shiva is ready to do anything for Krishna and he doesn't care what people thought about, what came to my mind is like he came as Sankaracharya. And as Sankaracharya, he has been criticized by the devotees, and he kind of took even the role of being against bhakti in one sense. So that's what came to my mind when you said that. It's like, yes, he's for the service of the Lord, he can even go almost against the Lord if that's the Lord, if that's the Lord's desire for him. That's what came to my mind. So I wanted to pick up on Kelly's comments about that aspect of the Lord that you highlighted, because that's what came to when you said it.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That's like opens like another aspect of how much he's not attached to what even devotees think of him. Thank you. Okay, so I think Gary, Gajendra, you were first, and then Laura.
Yeah, it brings to mind a memory that I have of my own experience going back a few decades, that I had some really close friends of mine that I did a lot of devotional work with, a lot of kirtan, were not Gaudiya Vaishnavas. They were in a lineage that was called Kashmir Shaivism. And they, of course, chanted, Shiva Shambho and things like this, but they also chanted the Vaishnava mantras. And I felt a little bit standoffish for a period of time. And I got into a discussion one time, and it was really funny because, we were sort of talking about, we were young, like, well, is it, Krishna or Shiva, or sort of, like what's hot, real, or whatever. And it was really funny because the first time I heard the statements about Shankaracharya and Bhaja Govinda was from them. They were literally knew all about that, what Shankaracharya had said. So there is some connection, and Malini just kind of mentioned, I was going to go there, some connection between Shankaracharya and Shiva. And as it evolves, maybe away from like ghosty goblin type creatures with, crematoriums or whatever, and smoking ganja, you know, as it evolves, it brings one to that point of Krishna Bhakti. So, you know, there's still close friends, and they fully embrace Krishna. It's really kind of a beautiful marvel. So even though their tradition was Kashmir Shivism, I found it completely harmonious to my Gaudiya Vaishnavism. It really wasn't like a competition or a conflict in the end. They were always happy to hear. And so it's like that. And I just thought it might be worth mentioning.
Yeah, thank you. Like you witnessed personally and have experience with followers of Shiva and how it's not contradictory to worshiping Krishna. And what I understood is that some of them have come to worship Krishna.
Oh, absolutely. They've brought many gifts to my deities. They bow to my deities. They, you know, very, very, very nice. And I kind of on what like others, Len and others have commented, like maybe it was Kelly, you know, there is a tendency, I don't, you know, maybe it's a contamination or a type of sectarianism to kind of shy away from some of these other personalities like Shiva or even Kali. But I mean, I always sort of knew about Kali and Srimad Bhagavatam, and I believe it was Jud Bharta she rescued, but it's just like these beings, these goddesses, gods, they seem like, well, they're not like, you know, Radha and Krishna that I'm more instinctively attracted to. And like, why are they there? Why are they even in Bhagavatam? And I realized that because they seem kind of like not attractive in a way. They seem kind of fearsome, and I realized that in particular states of consciousness and particular needs, that these beings, these gods and goddesses, are incredibly loving and merciful in ways that are unique to their form and personality, that would not be in character for Krishna directly, but they really fulfill a need on one's devotional path, one's need for understanding and receiving mercy. And so they are ultimately, you know, in some aspect representing the Lord, representing Krishna and Radha and Krishna, and serving them.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. For me also, like this, like Durga and Kali and also Shiva, just looking from the appearance and just externally what they're doing, it's like ghastly, it's horrible. And then in the context of Srimad Bhagavatam, I never thought they were ghastly actually when I first read about them. I just felt this, or maybe somehow got this energy of it's how God is present in the shadow, in the dark.
Yeah, thank you. Right.
Okay, so Laura, you wanted to share something.
Yes. Thank you for class, and I'm appreciating your sharing, Gary, too, because I lived at a yoga retreat / ashram a few years ago, and it was Kashmir Shivism, and just the last few weeks, or I guess it's on my mind, like the curiosity I still have about Shiva, and so I was like, I wasn't able to like understand everything in the class. Like I was just like kind of receiving some parts that I got, but I still have questions. Still have questions, and still being with my own experience of exploring Krishna and Krishna consciousness, and I'm happy to know that Shiva's still there and these other goddesses are still there, and I'm seeing how they are accessible in other ways or at other times. And then I'm understanding how I'm being told how Shiva was a great devotee of Krishna, and I'm surprised. Like I never heard anything about Krishna when I lived at the ashram that I lived at. I never heard anything about Krishna, and I've been wanting to reach out to that group and ask that question. Like there's a forum, and just ask and see who might reply and who has something to say from their stance, because I'm just curious. And here I am now. So I appreciate Shiva's role in my life, and I still appreciate his destruction energy. And I think I still have a lot of questions. So I just wanted to share that. And yeah, I think that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Yeah, what I get is that you're on a journey of exploration, and you spend time with worshippers of Shiva, and you're surprised now that you never heard of Krishna from them. Like, because here you hear how much Shiva is worshipping Krishna.
Yeah, and also how if Shiva is such a devotee of Krishna, it's like, was it like a secret? Like how come he wasn't telling the people about Krishna? Like if I don't know. Yeah, anyways, I don't know. Yeah, that's it.
You're wondering, and you're like in a mood of curiosity and discovery. And I mean, I don't know much. I don't know anything about you really, but it seems Lord Shiva did reveal Krishna to you. Maybe played an important role.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Rama?
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Anandini, for the class. It's sort of, I guess, the first time I observed Shivaratri. Before that, I never really paid attention to this, so it's very refreshing. Thank you for making a day for that. Sharing, and the question that comes to my mind is, I remember when I approached my mother, like first time, like in sharing with her about the Hare Krishna mantra, her reply was, I chanted mantras before, like Om Namo Shivaya. And in other words, like she didn't really feel like chanting anything else. And I asked her why. Her reply was, well, that mantra didn't work, so I think this mantra will not work either. So I'd rather just, continue with my life. And I'm thinking, how come it happened? Because, I mean, we hear about the elevation, for example, from ignorance to passion, goodness. And from my understanding, like worship of Lord Shiva, it's sort of the mode of ignorance or passion or something like that. So gradually we should be like elevated, and we would have more taste to worship Krishna ultimately. And it didn't seem that that's what happened to my mother. Mm-hmm. And that's sort of like my inquiry, like what is your experience of my sharing, and how come that was her experience of not developing taste ultimately for the Hare Krishna mantra.
So like unlike Gary's sharing, where that like kind of gave a proof to this, that Lord Shiva leads his devotees to Krishna. So you have an example where this didn't happen with your mother, and you're wondering how come.
Yeah, they were like quite big actually on Shiva. They would like her and my dad, they would go to the Kailash. It's like the place where everyone has circle it's kind of like the Govardhan Hill for the Vaishnavas, as I understand. And they like circumambulated that and everything, but still they never really developed the desire.
Yeah, I don't have a response like that's. I have some thoughts, and that's maybe like maybe the response is like what you said at the end. They didn't have a desire.
Mm. Okay.
But maybe
Thank you.
someone else has a more, I don't know, detailed response to that.
I'll just affirm, this discussion. Yeah, that even in the prayers, we just, one of Shiva's prayers is Prabhupada put in this purport, like he desires that he'll only taste Krishna prasadam, that he'll, so it's like, that's like the desire of a devotee is like, yeah, let me get the grace to have a taste for chanting your name. So, the essential principle is Krishna is reciprocating with our desire. And so, the different spirit souls covered by material energy and in the sojourn through so many species have so many desires, and sometimes, so Krishna is reciprocating with the desire of the living entity, and we're each on our journey in that way. Krishna, as super soul in the heart, is certainly encouraging us to turn towards him and to develop a taste for service, but he's not forcing it. So that's a basic principle as I see it.
Mm.
Also, it seems that most people who worship Lord Shiva don't come to Krishna, because Lord Shiva does bestow a lot of material commodities. He's married with Parvati, with the material energy. So he has access to everything material, even so he doesn't show anything in his way of being, because he's, covered with ashes and doesn't take care of himself, and he doesn't care for anything material. However, he's controlling all the material energy. And the worshipper of Lord Shiva, they don't want to know about Krishna, because they worship Lord Krishna, Lord Shiva, for material things, material, abundance. Like at the end of Krishna books, there is a question, it's in Bhagavatam, question by Maharaj Parikshit, and Maharaj Parikshit asked, he said, I don't understand how Lord Shiva appears so lacking abundance and is full of dirt and ashes all over himself, and his disciples are so wealthy and so abundant, and Lord Krishna, who is so abundant and beautiful with jewelry and all that, and his followers are so poor. So, and that's it, like Parishit Maharaj show mentality that's very, very present. And in India, most people who worship Lord Shiva, yes, they want to worship Lord Shiva. They want to have power. They want, even those who are full of ashes, they want to smoke marijuana and have mystic power and things like that. So their desire is not for Krishna.
Mm. Thank you. Vishnu Teja.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Anandini, for the class. I was just saying, I'm coming from that background. I grew up worshiping Lord Shiva with my family. My family used to celebrate Shivaratri elaborately every year, and I knew about Prabhupada as a kid, but I wasn't ready to worship Krishna. But I didn't see worshiping Lord Shiva as an impediment. I just thought that was what was best for my spiritual life, because I was filled with material desires, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. I feel curiosity. So you grew up with Shiva and celebrating this special day. Thank you. Patrick wrote something in the chat. If someone was to enter the Sattva Advanced Seminar at a certain time, they might think Sattva is about glorifying Shiva and Kali. My introduction to these personalities was through Sattva seminars alongside Krishna. Thank you. George.
Hare Krishna, Anandini. Thank you so much for class. I am curious if you would speak a little more about the analogy of the snake and the mouse as it relates to material possessions that you mentioned earlier.
Okay, I'll try. How I understand it, that Krishna, like he, like when he gets that that our desire for Krishna is sincere and our desire for devotional service, it's said that sometimes he takes away everything that would distract us from serving him. So sometimes Krishna takes away everything, and from outside it can look like it's really mean, like he's taking away everything. He's taking away. Well, I can maybe I can share a personal example. When I like a few years ago, 10, 12 years ago, we lost our, or we moved out of our home because of some story. We didn't have a home, and Paramatma lost his job, and like we lost some of our connection with friends. So it was a lot of things disappeared from my life, were like taken away. And at the same time, my like that forced me in a way, to pray to Krishna with more sincerity, with more feeling, to take shelter. So it's from externally, it could look like, oh, this person, like, it's experiencing such terrible things, loss, and in internally in the heart, there's a lot more devotion to God. So that's how I understood and interpreted this.
Thank you so much for clarifying.
I think Dira Govinda has to say something.
Just following up on that, this George's question and your response, this principle that Srila Prabhupada applies it to himself in a humble way. There's a verse in the Bhagavatam that Prabhupada quotes a lot, Yasyaham anugrinami harishe tadanam shanai. And it describes that if Krishna sees that a devotee is sincere, but they're still attached, and that attachment to something material is getting in the way, then Krishna takes it away. And so Prabhupada, well, it's qualitatively, it's similar to kind of the story you personally shared, Anandini, that Prabhupada, of course, we don't see that Prabhupada had any material attachments, but he saw himself that way, that Prabhupada had every opportunity to become like a great business magnate in chemistry and pharmacy. He had so many, and then just by some quirk of the energies of the Supreme, things didn't quite happen. And of course, Prabhupada's apparent attachment to becoming rich, or developing the League of Devotees, it was also that he could use it to spread Bhaktisiddhanta's movement. But he was seeing it that Krishna ultimately took everything away, and then materially he had nothing. He took sannyas. He had no business or bank account or family members, and then he was just fully dependent on Krishna and the mission of Bhaktisiddhanta. And then of course then Krishna and Shiva and the whole parampara gave Prabhupada everything on all levels. So just Srila Prabhupada applies this principle in his own life, that Krishna says if he sees a devotee sincere but has some material attachments, out of mercy, Krishna will take those material attachments away, including sometimes the externals, to support the devotee to more deeply and surrender with spiritual desperation.
Thank you, David. It seems like the snake and the mouse analogy is kind of it's almost a little scary to me, but I like seeing it as in the light that you're sharing it, it's like so much mercy. You know, like the snake attacking, it's almost like the taking away is more like mercy than anything else. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't have this. I could look it up. There's what I shared about how Krishna shares about why he doesn't fulfill material desires. It's very, very beautiful, very, very sweet. So I'll look for it and send it. Okay. Oh, Laura.
I just wanted to add one last thing, kind of just reflecting on my experience when I lived at this other ashram, because someone said mystical, like Shiva and mysticism or mysticalness, and maybe I heard last night from someone that, and here that he smoked pot or marijuana. There's much more to know. I don't know much, but I did feel, and this is an aversion I had while I was there when we would do meditation, because it was most of it was silent meditation, and we did mantra meditation, usually like Ganesh and Om Namah Shivaya. But during meditation, like I always, like it seemed like people like really wanting the mystical and mysticism. Like there was just like a lot of weird things happening that I always felt, I felt like discomfort around. And why am I sharing that? I guess I'm feeling happy about like this experience of Krishna and relationship to Krishna and devotional service, even though I don't really, maybe I'm pretending not to understand what that is. Like I have an experience of what that is, and I'm still in question of like, well, what is my distinct devotional service like to be, even though, okay, I'm doing devotional service in some ways now, but I'm appreciating that. Like I can feel the difference of that devotion of like the heart of devotion versus like, to me, it was like voidism with Shiva. I still appreciate Shiva and the energy of Shiva. And like I said, I still have a lot more exploring and questions, but then it felt more like the voidism. And I was just trying to like, I don't know, like quieting the mind and just resting, and devotion seems more purposeful and meaningful to me. That's all.
Thank you, Laura, for sharing. Thank you, everyone. Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. Lord Shiva ki Jai.
Jai.
Namo Shivaya ki jai.